This small low-view YouTube channel allowed me to make $160,000 in a single month. As an 18-year-old kid who has never set foot in a high school. In total, I've actually made well over $1 million, and I want to share my brutally honest and transparent journey with the highs that I experienced and also the lows, because I was the person on the other side of the screen watching this 3 years ago as an ex-Fortnite kid who had never accomplished anything in his life, had skipped through and just cheated on a lot of tests in school. And if I've been able to do this, I know that somebody else in a similar situation right now could do the exact same thing. Now, I started this journey the same way I think we all did. After the world had shut down, I realized that I wanted to make some change in my life. So I decided that the first thing I needed to change was my physique, and I started going to the gym. From that point on YouTube, I started searching up videos about how to work out, what the best nutrition protocol is, and as a result of watching those videos, I began getting recommended self-improvement videos by business gurus. I was watching hours of YouTube every single day, taking as many notes as I could, and I even actually made a list of all the influencers that I was watching, and I decided to reach out to them with Instagram messages saying that I was a fan of their content even if I had just discovered them, and asking them for just one tip of advice for me on my journey. What I didn't understand at the time is that every single person I messaged was trying to sell me, and when I jumped on my call to receive some advice, I got pitched a $10,000 program the first time, and the second time they were a little bit smarter and decided to ask me how much I had saved up, which I told them, hey, I have $2,500. I had spent the last 10 months washing dishes in the back of an Italian restaurant, and they told me, oh, well, that's actually the price of the starting payment on the program we're selling. And I really looked up to this guy that I was actually with because it was there in person, in the flesh, on the call. And because of that, I decided to first and foremost drain my entire bank account on this one program. Now, upon joining the program, my hopes were extremely high. I had my onboarding call and I got started, but I quickly realized that this wasn't what it was actually made out to be. Nothing that I was promised on the sales call was actually in the program, but I tried to make the most of it. After going through all the content and spending 2 weeks networking with the members inside, I actually got a pretty good benefit, but then it was abruptly switched to a completely different business model, which was actually illegal for me to start, being 15 years old at the time. Now, this is where my back was really against the wall. The only thing that I had money in my bank account for was my gym membership, and outside of that, the only food I was eating was what we already had in stored up cans in the house. Now, I could have went and told my parents or my friends what had just happened, and I probably would have gotten sympathy and had my problem solved. However, I was way too scared to do that, and what I decided to do instead was lock myself in my room, just eating those canned foods and focusing on working 12 hours per day to just make something work. For me, this was sending out messages on Instagram to people, and the typical amount that most people would say to send per day would be between 25 to 50, but because I was so desperate, I was sending anywhere from 250 to 300 or even more than that if I actually could. Through hard work alone, I managed to actually make my first money online, and just through continuing that process and working 12 to 14 hours a day, literally being chained to my desk, I managed to get my first ever business, my social media marketing agency, to $10,000 a month in the first 12 months after starting. Now, to be transparent with you, it is a bittersweet feeling, because as much as I had seen success and now was making pretty decent money, it felt as though I had traded everything else in my life to get that money. Now, even though I was making good money, for me, it felt as though it wasn't secure, and I was also chained to my desk for 12 to 14 hours a day, just sending out messages constantly to actually maintain this. It got me to a point where I realized that this traditional business model was not for me. I was working with people double or triple my age, and they treated me as though I was a 15-year-old, and because of that, I wasn't actually running my own business. I was just an employee for dozens of different entrepreneurs who actually had their own companies. And this bothered me to no end, but I figured that I got this initial break of success. Let me not be ungrateful. Let me actually turn this into something. And because of that, I continued running on this business, and yes, being chained to my desk for 12 hours a day, managed to scale it up to making $25,000 a month online. This is where I had my first real taste of freedom, and when I began to go back and join other communities, I would meet people like myself who were just starting, just trying to make money online, and realize that I could have actually been the person that properly gives somebody guidance, not telling them or promising them some crazy dream, but giving them the brutally honest truth of what it took to get to where I was now. When I joined this community, I became somewhat of a leader just because I was somebody who could provide good insight and actually prove that what they were doing works, and give honest advice as to how others can do the exact same thing. And I did this for free for probably the first 3 to 6 months, until I realized that, oh, if I'm sharing all this insight to people on these one-on-one calls and they're coming back to me and saying, hey, I signed my first client doing this, I made my first 1,000, made my first 2,000, made my first 5,000. It wasn't the craziest result in the world, and it wasn't like I was the biggest expert in the world on how to run an agency, but I realized that this message could be valuable to other people. And around that time, I decided to post my first ever YouTube video titled How I Signed My First 2 SMA Clients in 14 Days as a 16-year-old. And even though I was sharing a story about my previous experience that I just told you, that video absolutely blew up. It got 10,000 views. And because of that, I just had an influx of people, even more so now, trying to ask me, hey dude, how'd you manage to do this? How did you pull this off? When this happened, everybody came to my Instagram asking me questions about how to do this, and I tried to help everybody for free in addition to running my own agency, but I realized that that wasn't going to work. And funny enough, when I actually help people for free, they didn't actually take it seriously enough to go ahead and make any changes in their lives. So what I decided to do was set a very cheap price and actually work alongside one of the other guys in the mastermind selling a $100 product that we called the First Client Challenge. All it did was show people how to go from having absolutely no experience in business to just getting that first client on board. And we actually managed to get that program to an 80% success rate of people who joined, where they pay us $100, they get their first client, and we either give them their money back or they down pay that and we help them with their service delivery. Just doing this and posting 2 times weekly on YouTube on a super small channel allowed us to make our first $10,000 a month from actually selling digital products online, in addition to the agency I was also running at the time. This is where my eyes really started to open when it comes to the power of building a personal brand, specifically on YouTube. At my agency, I had to send out hundreds of messages every single day to actually partner with people that I didn't really want to work with, and I'd made the exact same income and profit that I had spent the last 12 months of my agency building up in just 1 month of posting on YouTube. Now, I'd love to say that when I saw this, I just immediately jumped ship and started making all this money, flexing on people and becoming a guru, but that was a huge fear of mine. Given that I had lost all my money to a guru, I did not want to be that person for other people where you're just telling people how to do things that you aren't really doing, making promises that you can't live up to, and then as a result of that, kind of screwing over people just like myself. Now, that was not what I wanted to do, but I did decide that this is something that I have to explore further and keep trying to actually grow on. So for the next 6 to 12 months, I just continued posting on YouTube. And as a rule, I always tried to never make any real claims when it comes to what kind of outcome I can get you. Instead of that, I just focused on the methodology of how I did things. And if you want to learn from me, then you had the ability to, but I'm not going to tell you how you should live your life or that you can get a certain thing. And I also struggled with pricing for a very long time. Charging just $100 was too little of a price point for me to justify hopping on one-to-one calls every single day. So inevitably, I had to slowly increase the price. And for a long time, I was charging $500 for a service that most people would charge $10,000 for. My rule that I had is I'd only ever charge a fraction of the results that I was able to generate other people. So if somebody was able to sign their first client for $500 or $1,000, I charge $100. And then when I was able to get people to $5,000 a month, I was only charging $2,000. And then when they got to $10,000 a month, I would only charge $5,000. And I continued on with this rule because I understood that if I can help other people achieve more than they pay me, I'm going to have repeat business because the demand that I have is always going to be higher than the supply that I can actually provide. Long story short, I continued on with that exact same methodology of thinking, and after shutting down that business temporarily, restarting an agency to once again hit a higher landmark, which was $36,000 in 6 weeks, I managed to take that business alongside my partner to $100,000 in a month in December of 2023, and continuing from that point on doing $160,000 a month on an 80% margin, and that business even still runs today. And because of this, YouTube absolutely did change my life. Without being that kid who first off started watching YouTube and then as a kid also becoming the YouTuber, I got paid on both sides of the spectrum and really just benefited from this online ecosystem. Without it, I'd probably be a kid in college with absolutely no idea or clue for what he wanted to do in life. The biggest difference that I noticed between my story and other people's is that I really was never great at going viral. The quality of content that I produced was never super insane, and I really was never the craziest speaker or the craziest gear, whatever it was. The only thing that I focused on was creating low view, specific quality, what I call micro content. As a result of this, the channel you're watching right now has made me a lot of money, yet it's not even monetized on YouTube, meaning that I don't get paid from people putting ads on my videos. And the funny part about it is that while all the people that do faceless content making these AI crazy videos that get millions of views all worry about their CPM, which just means how much YouTube pays you per 1,000 viewers, the highest CPMs, meaning that YouTube pays you the most per 1,000 viewers, all come from personal brands that talk about something that is related to the business or the finance niche. What this means is that in addition to actually running all of the products that you have on your own, making more money from that, you also get paid more from the platform YouTube, because advertisers see that kind of person that's watching those more qualified educational style videos as a way more worthy candidate to buy whatever product they are trying to sell on your YouTube video. In addition to that, your personal brand is the only asset or online business model that can last you the next 5 to 10 years or even the rest of your life. I've seen many YouTube channels come and go that might only last a few years and aren't actually built on any foundation other than just entertaining people. You can run a dropshipping store that goes dead after about a few months of just extracting as much money as you can from it. Even an agency, when you run it for years, you're going to be able to make consistent money and keep it afloat. However, it's going to be very, very difficult and require a lot of your time. However, you're never going to break out of that game where you always have to reach out to other clients and again be on a lower status frame than the people you're trying to work with up here. And that is why I am such a big advocate of building a personal brand specifically on YouTube. All the people you watch that make the most money might have started with a given business model, but the one that's actually making them most of their money and what they've gone all in on is always going to be that brand and that image that will last them for the rest of their lives. Look at Alex Hormozi. He's a guy who's made well over $100 million, all from the world of direct response running Facebook advertisements, yet he decided to go all in on his personal brand. Or a guy like Iman Gadzhi, who's made the absolute most money selling digital products online and is just committed to focusing on purely organic personal brand. Or a guy like Brez, who you see going viral now, whose foundation all comes from the YouTube channels that he's running, and the list goes on. But the rule of thumb is that if you are watching someone and you know they have money, they have a personal brand, and they're getting rich off of it. Even guys like Mr. Beast, Conor McGregor, the Kardashians have become billionaires just because people know their face. Now, I'm sure you've heard this all before, but what you might not know is that you can do the exact same thing and you can change your life with it in the span of 30 days. Now, I'm not going to promise you any fancy income claims or something, but when I did this personally, I was able to make $10,000 in 32 days just by documenting the process of me just living my life as an entrepreneur. Fundamentally, all you need is one skill that people are willing to pay you for, and this does not need to be some crazy thing. I've met people making millions of dollars teaching people English, teaching people how to use Excel spreadsheets. If you're in decent shape, whatever it is, and what you're going to do is you're going to document the process of you actually continuing to develop that skill. Instead of trying to be this massive guru who creates content telling people how to do things, all you do is share your own journey and your own life, and because of that, people are going to relate to you, they're going to resonate with your story, and as you begin to see crazy results, you're going to ask, well, how can I do the same? From that point on, you can just follow the exact same game plan that I did. At first, you just start working for free, and you do this for 3 to 6 months, focusing on getting people good results. Once you have decent results, you can begin to actually go ahead and charge a price, and this price is going to be very, very modest at first, and you want to make sure that as a rule of thumb, you're always providing 10 times the value that somebody pays you for, so there's a no-brainer on whether somebody actually got their value or not from what you were selling them. What this is going to do is it's going to give you conviction to better market yourself and feel confident that you're not ripping people off in any way, shape, or form. Then, as the gap of what you can actually do and provide as a result to somebody in your given skill grows, you can begin charging more money, and as you begin getting bigger results for people, you can begin charging a larger percentage of whatever that result is. And this doesn't have to be purely income related. For example, if you help somebody lose weight, what is the benefit in their lives monetarily look like? How much time do they save? What would that be worth if they went to a gym or hired a personal trainer for that result? And all you have to do as a result of that is make sure you charge something that's comfortable with you. And from that point on, as you begin to document your life, you're not rushing out trying to sell or feeling the guilt of being an influencer, a guru, or a content creator. You're just somebody who is online documenting their life almost like it's a movie and you're the main character, and as a result, people are paying you for what you have and what you have to offer. Now, I have videos where I get a lot more tactical on what these specific strategies I use to implement this actually are, but that's my story, and if you'd like me to help you completely for free, just comment your niche or skill below and I'll show you exactly how I'd approach it and kind of build a documentary series around it. Outside of that, I hope that the value you got from this video is worth the time that you spent on it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.